Mark, welcome. The European Union has already proposed, I think, something like $43 billion for its own chips legislation. How is this US plan going to impact Europe's plans?
Well, I think it leaves Europe in the usual sort of place that it's caught between a rock and a hard place. Europe has spent much of the past 30 years trying to bridge the gap between China and the US, and finds itself exposed when it's reliant on either exports to or imports from one or the other. And its own independent methodologies still are very much dependent, given that most of the raw materials in Europe for practically any industry come from abroad. Finds itself, caught in the middle of the crossfire of what is basically an increasingly protectionist fight.
What do you make of China's response?
I'm wholly unsurprised. It fits very much with the current environment of enormous trade and obviously overall geopolitical tensions between the US and China. Their response is very understandable. I think what people need to remember, it was only at the end of the Cold War that we actually saw a freeing up of a lot of technology. This basically is stepping back towards a Cold War type era where so much technology basically suddenly gets shuttered in a particular given country due to national security issues. And it has to be remembered at all times that the pooling of knowledge within the tech sector and indeed any other sector has actually been the cornerstone of the whole technology boom that we've had over the past 30 years.
How do you see the global chip market looking, I don't know, a year or even 5 years down the track?
Well, it's certainly going to be more fractured. I think the biggest problem with the US CHIPS Act at the moment is actually what they're doing is providing all these effective subsidies and encouragement for the industry to do more domestically at a time when global chip demand is going over the hill. And we've seen various warnings, whether it's from Micron Technology, whether it's from Samsung or TSMC, that basically demand is starting to fall off, particularly above all demand related to mobile phones and PCs. And probably we've got to the end of the road in terms of the shortage of chips available, or we are getting to the end of the shortage of chips available in cars. So it's this sort of thing. It's great. People welcome it. And then you find that actually the actual growth environment, the economic environment is not so conducive. And so the benefits will take longer to accrue because this is a long-term project. It doesn't mean that the US is suddenly going to be producing lots and lots of microchips, by the end of this year. It just won't happen that way. It takes a long time to actually build the infrastructure and then also create the demand.
Mark, good to see you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Mark Ostwald, the Chief Economist and Global Strategist at ADM Investor Services in London.